welcome to Morning Coffee. I am your host, Brooke Carlock, and I am super excited about our guest today. She is an all-around just powerhouse person, so I can't wait to talk to her. She is a certified life coach and a grief treatment professional and an author and a speaker, and her name is Krista Rizzo, so we're going to welcome her to the stage. Hello, Krista. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me. How is everybody today? Oh, good.
It is International Bereaved Mother's Day, so I want to say a quick, I don't think you can say Happy Bereaved Mother's Day because, that's really awkward, but just letting everyone in our audience know and people listening to the replay that I am with you guys in solidarity and sending you my love on this day. So Krista, again, thanks for joining us. I am so excited to hear your story and especially kind of how you transitioned into your grief work. So I guess we can just start off with kind of introducing, if you want to introduce yourself and tell our audience who you are, a little bit about you.
Sure. So I'm Krista Rizzo. I know Brooke has already said this, a certified coach and grief treatment educator. I also have over 20 years of experience in the corporate sector. So I've been around for quite a while. I started coaching professionally about 10 years ago, and that stemmed from coming out of corporate and coming out of a toxic work environment. And it was before Me Too and before all of the stuff that we see now in the activism communities out there, but that was what was happening to me. And, I think I was 40 years old when that happened. So, I was younger than that. But as a middle-aged or young mom, I had 2 little kids at the time and now they're older, but, and all these responsibilities and bearing a certain mindset that I think a lot of women even still do, that we have to carry all of the weight and be the superheroes and not ask for help because that was considered a weakness. I was doing that, and I was keeping all of my stuff, covered. And so that kind of turned into a little bit of not a little bit, but anxiety and depression and burnout and all kinds of things. And I quickly realized, or with the help of my husband, realized that this was not going to be okay. So I made the decision to leave the corporate sector and figure out what I wanted to do. So I jumped really without a parachute and worked with a coach who said to me, you need to go, this is something you need to do for you. Like, you need to be a coach. You have all of this experience. You have all of this stuff you need to do with this. So that's how my coaching journey started. I started in parent coaching. I was coaching parents on parenting and relationships and all of that stuff. And it kind of has, as we know, life is not linear, right? It took a sharp left and a sharp right, and it's like a roller coaster. And it led me to more speaking opportunities and, engagement back in the corporate sector, ironically, right? But talking about building resilience and overcoming burnout and, maintaining, solid relationships professionally and personally. And then COVID hit. And we have a global pandemic, and my business went 100% virtual, like just about everybody else's. And I started, speaking and coaching back in the corporate sector on these topics. But now you add a global pandemic into the conversation. And as you're having these conversations, people are starting to talk about their frustrations with what they don't have anymore. Not really, equating it or associating it with loss. Right? We have lost time. We have lost health. We have lost, lives. We have lost jobs and finances and experiences, right? How many times did you have to cancel an event, or your child didn't graduate or didn't have a graduation ceremony, right? Or they couldn't go to prom. These are all things that we discount. And as we were having these conversations, I also personally was dealing with a tremendous amount of loss in very rapid succession. I lost my dad 7 years ago, my mom at the beginning of 2021, where it was still like into the pandemic, my brother exactly 1 year later, almost like 13 months later. And so I'm having these conversations, multiples of them during the day with my clients, and I'm trying to figure out how to deal with this loss as well. So I decided I was going to lean into the grief, because I didn't know any other way to do it. And as a coach and somebody who is constantly wanting to learn and so I could educate better, I decided I'm going to go and I'm going to I'm going to learn grief. Like how I have to learn how to do this.
Yeah. That was the same thing I did.
I have to learn it, right? So I went and I got certified as a grief treatment educator, and it was probably one of the best decisions I've ever made because it gave me the opportunity. I already understood that each loss deserves its own grief period. You can't jumble it all together because they're all very different.
Yes, definitely.
You know, you also can't compare them. And I think we do that just by virtue of, oh, I might have lost my mother. You might have lost a child. What's more important? And they're both significant and they're both what's most important to you. Right. And I think we have to understand that, you know, just because we each have different experiences doesn't make them more or less significant. And we have to be able to say that out loud without being judged by other people. Right. So I leaned into it. I got certified and then I kind of like added a whole nother component to my business. While I still do my corporate talks, I now have written a book about grief and I did a video course on it. And now I'm starting a live community where I'm going to do, it's a private community where I do monthly or not monthly, weekly, you know, group coaching calls or just talking about it, you know, live to people. Cause I think I know it's a conversation we need to have.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's just say right off the bat where people can find that or find that information. Because that's something I have people ask me all the time and I'm a full-time teacher still.
Yeah.
So I do this kind of on the side to help people, I wrote a book and stuff, but I don't do like the one-on-one and I don't have any group programs or anything like that. So where could they find that information if they want that support from you?
Sure. So I have a website. It's called youcan'ttellmehowtofeel.com or just KristaRizzo.com. There's two websites and they both kind of, overlap. But the grief stuff is on You Can't Tell Me How to Feel. That's the name of the book. And it's a short one. It's 35 pages. Everything's digital that I have, right? I want to make it very accessible for people and affordable for people. So there's an individual membership and there's a corporate membership. So the idea is if you're a single person and you are, going through it and you're looking for a community and you're looking for resources that are, I don't want to say lighthearted because that's not really what I mean, but it's not that it's not as heavy as a lot of the grief books that you read. And sometimes we walk away from those resources, which are super valuable, but we feel heavier. And I didn't want that. I was like, you know what, I'm going to talk to you about what I learned and how I'm using it and, the way I've used it and how I've, taught it to clients and to other people and how they can use it without it feeling like I have to do this right now. So it's important for you to understand that, grief is very individual to the person and to the experience. And, it's up to you to figure out what your comfort level is with it. And so my whole thing is learning how to do it on your terms in your time. Right. Yeah. And so that the whole thing is just one piece kind of falls into the other. And then I think, with the whole community piece, I really am trying to impact 1 million people and more. Right. I'm starting at 1 million. And that's a big number when you really look at it.
That is a big number. I saw that.
But then when you look at it, it's like, but it's not. It's not like I can figure out how to do this. And so that's why I have a corporate membership also. So if you're a business and you want your people, you want to give a benefit to your staff, you can buy this and give people access to these resources. Yeah. You can also, if you're in the, the death or bereavement space, a funeral home, a hospice center, a substance rehabilitation facility, you can buy this and then give this to your clients.
Yeah.
As a gift or charge them for it. I think as a gift, I'm not charging that so much for it that you're, right. But I think that's how we do it, right? We have people investing in other people. You can give it as a gift. You can, maybe buy it as a group, for a group, a mom's group or something that's going through a grieving situation. Like I'm not interested in how much money it's going to make me on the back end. I want to be able to afford to do this.
Yeah.
But I also want to be able to give it to people in a way that is comfortable for them to be able to join us and participate.
Yeah. Well, and just to spread the word and get people talking about it. And
yeah,
that's kind of what I do. I
yes, and it's great.
It's like being open and honest, and kind of similarly to you, where like my book, it has funny parts in it, and it's people are always like, why are you laughing about grief? And it's just like, well, if you don't, what else are you going to do?
Right.
So yes, I can totally relate. But one of the things I was really interested in talking to you about after looking through all of your stuff, I think the transition that you made to helping people with their relationships, and a lot of it is about, kind of starting over because of your experience. Yeah. And I had a similar experience where right before my daughter died, I had written this like manifesto letter that ended up getting published on Scary Mommy. And it was just basically I had a meltdown because I was doing all the things for all the people and was so overwhelmed and, working full time with 3 kids. And it was just like, what are we doing to ourselves?
Yeah.
And then my daughter died. And I don't know if you know my story, but I also lost my dad, my mom, and my stepmom, and my daughter in a year and a half. And it just completely flipped my world upside down. So I feel like for so many people that go through a monumental loss like that, it causes you to shift your priorities and look at your life and say, like, what am I doing? What am I doing with my time? There are so many people that I run into that are trying to find ways to start over in life because they realize it's so short. And maybe they want to do something different, or they don't have like the bandwidth to do what they were doing. So I guess my question is, like, what would you say to those people, or how do you think those things overlap? Because I think one of the hardest things for people in deep grief is envisioning a future where you feel like you're actually going to be okay.
Yeah. Yep. I think profound loss is so hard to articulate, right? Because it's very heavy and it's very deep. And there are people that, experience it early in life, and there are people that experience it later in life, right? Yep. And I think that if you are somebody who has experienced it earlier in your life, everything is a choice, right? And this is what I say to my clients. It's a choice. We all have a choice to get up every day and get out of bed. One of my dearest friends lost her husband a year ago to a very, very aggressive cancer. And they have 3 young boys. And, we speak very frankly about our experiences. And she's like, would I rather be in bed most days? Yep. But I have 3 boys that I thank whoever for, right? That force me to get myself out of bed, even if it's just for 2 hours to get them ready in the morning. And then I can go back to bed for 2, you know what I mean? Like, but she's like really being honest about it. And I think in my book, I call it AVA, acknowledge, validate, and act. And I think, somebody told me that after my brother died, I was having a conversation with somebody and they said, the only way out is through. And I was like, you're right? We can try to tiptoe around things for a long time, right? The whole fake it till you make it idea is very big in our lives. But I think that when you recognize that I'm sad and I'm angry and you go through all the stages, and there are probably stages that we don't even recognize out there that haven't been articulated for us. You kind of have to take a step back and choose and say, okay, but I don't want to feel this way anymore. And it's okay to not want to feel this way anymore. And that's when the guilt comes in, because you're like, well, they're not, you know what I mean? Like, it is a vicious, you're on a hamster wheel the whole time.
Absolutely.
But I think when you finally, when it clicks, and I hope that it does, it will click, right? Just by acknowledging, and that's why I feel like it's important to acknowledge that this happened, because I'm an avoider, and I say this all the time. I don't want to actually face things. I'm happy to have an uncomfortable conversation. I don't like to fight though, right? Like, I like to have smart, thought out conversations, right? I don't like to react. I'm very good at being a responder rather than a reactor. I've learned how to do that. It didn't come naturally. I'm also a hot-headed Italian, so I've got that in my blood. But I think, when you finally yes, this has happened and it is the worst thing I can possibly imagine, right? But this is my life and this is what I have to live with. And now I'm going to validate the feelings that come with that, the anger and the sadness and the joy, sometimes the laughter that you said. And then I have to decide how I want to act on it.
Yeah.
And that's where this whole thing of in your time, on your terms, or, comes into play, because there is no timeline for grief. You will sit with this for the rest of your life. It becomes part of you. And that's okay, because that's what makes you special. It just adds to your uniqueness. And that's what adds to your experience. And your experience can potentially help somebody else through theirs. And I also don't think that we think of it that way, right? Every single one of us is a teacher. You are a trained teacher. You are in a classroom. You speak to people every day and you teach. I'm not a trained teacher in that way, but I am a teacher in coaching and grief education and the certifications that I hold. But you don't have to be certified to teach other people things.
Yeah.
And I think that a lot of people don't recognize that either. Like, your experience is what makes you who you are, and that makes you unique and special. And sharing your experience is really important. It's not, oh, I'm not qualified for that. Of course you are. You lived it. I want you to tell me this. I want to learn from you. And I'm hoping that I'm passing along that to whoever I'm passing it along to. But I think that you get through these things by understanding that it doesn't go away. Like, time heals. I'm not sure. I'm just not. You know what I mean? Like, I know that there are things that I have gotten over easier than other things. Gotten over. And I don't really like gotten over either. Gotten through.
Through, yeah.
Right? Easier than other things. And I know that I'm still getting through some things. And then, obviously we've never been taught in this society to learn how to navigate grief or how to deal with grief. And so we've watched other people do it. Right. And that's kind of how you learn. But when you wake up and you realize that this isn't something you get over.
Yeah.
It's something that you can potentially get through, but maybe even not. Maybe it is something that you bring with you every day to talk about and educate and have it become part of you that you can live with in a more comfortable way.
Yeah, that's, I say that to people all the time because I get a lot of comments that are like, oh, why can't I be more like you? I want to be more like you.
Right.
And I'm like, you don't have to be like me. Like, like you said, I've been teaching my whole life. It's been 23 years. I've been a teacher in front of a classroom, and I'm used to talking to people and being in front of people. And this is what I do and what I'm comfortable with. But not everyone is going to be that way. That's why I said, like, people who write in the comment section and just share their story or share what they're going through. Like, it's such a big impact on people that they don't realize, just to see that other people are feeling the same way. It's just so validating. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. But it's like, I tell people all the time, like, you don't have to be out there in front of a camera, like, or writing a book or whatever. Like, don't be like me. Do you. Like, everybody gets through it differently. And and what you see on camera isn't always what is behind the scenes either. And I try to be like brutally honest with what I'm going through, but you still can't, there's no camera inside my head, so you can't tell what the heck I'm thinking or feeling. Just walk your own path.
Yeah.
But I think like you, we similarly kind of like, for so many people, I think just the act of getting started, I think it's hard for people to get over that hump of thinking like, I'm never going to get over it. It's never going to get better. Like, I have nothing to look forward to. I just did a video on the last section of my book where I talk about the last step is transforming your future. And I tell people right off the bat, like, you don't have to don't aim for this right away. Like that's down the road. You might not be ready for it for a while. And when I say transform your future, I'm not talking like doing something crazy. Right. I'm talking about the basics, like just setting those small goals and achieving those small goals every day is what's going to get you there. Like what's going to get you through it to the point where maybe eventually you can see a lot more hope down the road. Yeah. So it's small. It doesn't have to be huge steps. It can be baby steps.
Yes. It should be baby steps.
Yes. And just do it at your own pace.
Yes.
So
I often talk to my clients about expectations.
Yep.
Because we are so, as humans, prone to setting our expectations like all the way up here.
Yeah.
And I hate to say it, people, but most of the time we don't get there because we've put so much pressure on ourselves to go from here to here. You can't get to the top of the ladder without stepping on each rung. You can't get from A to Z without the 24 letters in between the anchors.
Yep.
Right? So only bite off as much as you can chew. And sometimes you can take a big bite. And other times you might only be able to take a nibble. You might even have to skip a day. You know what I mean? Like I think it is so vastly important to teach people about having the right expectations for the moment that you're living in. And only you can decide that, right? I can't wake up tomorrow and be like, well, you know what I'm going to be tomorrow? I'm going to be J-Lo. And I'm going to be, dancing at Madison Square Garden. No, she worked for 800 years to get to where she is, right? And we all have to recognize that none of us are superhuman. We all have other responsibilities. There's so much stuff that we have to deal with every day that also layers on top of the grief that you're feeling or whatever it is that you're going through. So give yourself grace. I think it's important to recognize that.
Yes, I say that all the time.
All the time.
All the time. Yeah. Self-compassion. I saw you just posted about that too. Like self-compassion is one of the biggest things with grief is just, oh my gosh, like go easy on yourself.
Yes. You don't have to like press the gas and go.
Yeah.
It's okay to tap the brakes. It's okay.
And not every day has to be perfect.
No,
there are ups and downs.
Doesn't exist.
Yeah,
like we have to like bust that myth too, right? Yeah. Like I feel like someone asked me that once many years ago, and they're like, "What is your idea of perfection?" And I was like, "That we all need to not have it, right? Because it's different for each one of us. It's like success. What is success like? Success doesn't mean the big house and 700 cars and having a private jet. Like, would it be nice? Of course it would. I wouldn't say no to it. But that for me is not what it is. It could be that for you. And I would never say, well, that's the wrong way to be. Right. But I think that, when you are giving yourself self-compassion and you're, setting yourself up for that success, you kind of have to think about it as what works for me.
Mm-hmm.
And how is this going to work for me? And sometimes that might feel selfish.
Yeah.
But that's not what it is. I also talk a lot about self-care and self-compassion and all of that stuff. And it's like, if you have to recognize that the person in the mirror is the only person that is going to be with you forever.
Right.
And that's sometimes a hard pill to swallow. Right. And, I was having this conversation with my husband the other day. I was like, I hate to say it, but we're on the downslide. Like we're past the 50. So we're on the downslide. And so we have to have these conversations. Like, what do we like? What do you want? What do I want? What do we want? Right. Our kids are older. Our son, one of them is in college. The other one is, only in the 6th grade. We have a lot of time left with him. But, think about those things. Think about how you want your life to look and be, and then go figure out how to do that. And don't get in a Ferrari to do it. Like, get on your bicycle and learn how to pedal again. Right. Like, take your time.
It's funny. That sounds so much like what I talk about. So yeah, totally on the same page there. And also I think so much of it, and I think grief, it's going to sound weird to say that there's a good thing about grief, but one of the, I think there's
a lot of good things. I hate to say it.
Like, and obviously we would have our person back in a heartbeat if we could, but we can't.
Right.
So what can we learn from it? And one of the things I think people learn if they allow themselves are what their true values are. Like what is
Yeah.
really important to you.
Yep.
and,
Yep.
and one of the things I discovered, because I'm my boys are both older, so they're 21 and 19 now, and I'm in that empty nest. Like,
Yes.
what the heck? It was like a total life shift, mom of
Yes.
little kid to empty nest, single woman living in a
Also
tiny
another
nest.
level of grief.
Yeah, it's a whole thing. But it really kind of forced me to ask myself, well, what will actually make me happy? And I think sometimes it surprises people because you were talking about perfection, and all I kept thinking was like, we live in this Hallmark Channel culture where if something bad happens by the end of an hour and 50 minutes, everything ends up happily ever after. And people get those expectations, like I'm gonna lose someone, but then within
Prince Charming is going to come sweep you off your feet, and you're going to go sell Christmas trees in Lancaster, Pennsylvania.
Yes, that is
yes. No,
that is exactly
that's not what's going to happen.
Yes. So, do you know that I live in Lancaster, Pennsylvania?
No,
I live in Lancaster, Pennsylvania.
That's hilarious. I just said it because I feel like that's where all the Christmas tree farms are.
They actually use the town where I teach. They actually use the main street of that town in Hallmark movies.
That is hilarious.
Example. So yeah, it's like, your cowboy's gonna come and rescue you from whatever you're going through, and then you're just gonna magically feel all better again. And it just does not work that way. So yeah, I think the figuring out what will actually make you content, I guess is the word.
Yeah.
Like, what kind of life will you be content living? And then kind of start with that and work on figuring that out and doing the baby steps to get there. But,
and I think that's smart, right? Because, you talk about happiness, and it's nobody else's job to make you happy. Everyone. It's your job to make you happy.
Yeah.
And, that also is a hard pill to swallow, because we have been brought up to believe that getting things or having certain kinds of relationships and certain kinds of behaviors in relationships will make us happy. And then one day we kind of look at ourselves in the mirror and we wake up and we're like, hold on, this isn't what I thought it was going to be. Right. And then we have to kind of acknowledge that and validate that and act on that. Right. And we have to say to ourselves, okay, what actually makes me happy? Sometimes it takes a while to figure it out, because if you've been living this other facade or this other kind of life you've created in your head that is not satisfying to you, it's like, wow. And how many, countless, especially with women, right? Like, we have been brought up to believe that we have to take care of everybody else first, right? Like, I often say this to my clients, and even when I'm doing these podcast interviews, my grandmother, my father's mother, Italian, 4 feet 10 inches tall, had a heart of gold, but lived a martyr's life, right? She lived for everybody else. She was probably the most unhappy person I'd ever met. Not outwardly, but you could just, and as I got older and into my 20s, it was like you could recognize it, because now I'm an adult. She ended up living with my parents after my grandfather died, and until she was 82 years old, ironed my dad's boxer shorts. Like, that's what? Like, you're lucky if I fold my head.
Yeah.
Like, come on. But that was what the expectation was. And so my mother, having married my father, that was the expectation for her. And it was like, I remember being a little girl. It was like, well, you get married, you get a job, you get benefits, you buy a house, you have babies. And it was like kind of all in that. What happens if we don't do that?
Right. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, how about you do what makes you happy? And one of my really good friends who lives in Pennsylvania, ironically, who I used to work with in corporate, when I was pregnant with my oldest, I was like, what's your best piece of advice that you have for me? Because her kids were teenagers by then. And she said, I tell my kids 3 things every single day. And I do it also now. She says, I tell them to be happy, because their happiness is their choice. And whatever they do, I want them to be able to make those choices and know that I will support them in those choices, right? Unless they're doing nefarious things. But like, be happy. Your happiness is your responsibility. Make good choices is the next one. She's like, I say that to them all the time when they're leaving the house in the morning, when they're going out with their friends. Make a good choice, right? Like, just think before you speak and think before you act, and be kind to people. And you never know what anybody else is going through, and like, have those conversations with them. And I was like, okay. And then she said, I love you. She's like, and I'm a big, I love you. I tell strangers on the street that I love them, right? I don't reserve love for like my core people. I don't believe in that. I think the world needs all the love it can get. So, it is not strange for me to be standing in the grocery store and somebody does something nice. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I love you. Thank you so much for doing that for me. And then I get like, oh my gosh, I love you too. You're welcome. Right. It's not hard to say.
Yeah.
But I think it's those 3 small things can help somebody through their day, right? And it's just 3 small things that you have to recognize for yourself. Just be happy.
I love that. All right, I'm going to throw a comment up here. So when it says, if we don't take care of ourselves, we have nothing to give to others. It's not selfish. Oh, that is so true.
Yeah,
it took me a long time to learn that.
Yes.
So if you learn that early, the
better off you are.
Good. And Lori, today is Bereaved Mother's Day. So I said in the
sending
intro,
all of our love,
sending all of our love to all of our bereaved mothers out there, because it is rough. Very rough.
It's a hard day. We're sending all of our love to you.
Yeah. So, Krista, if I could I'm going to get a little more personal. So you talked about your multiple losses. Is there one for you that was the most difficult that you struggled with, or was it all kind of?
I think for me, it was different.
Yeah.
Each one of them was different, right? It was a different person, but all very significant. So it was when my dad passed away 7 years ago, he was not well. And, he had struggled with his health for many years. And, I think the only person that was still shocked was my mother, and she lived with him every single day. It was not a shock to anybody else. But he was, 71, and that's young. And so it was like, okay, so then that happened. And I think I was more prepared for that one. Yeah. Right. Because he had his first heart attack at 55. And it was like, oh, okay. So we kind of had to monitor him for a long time.
Yeah.
So that wasn't easy, but I felt like I was more prepared for it when it came. Right. My mother was a complete shock. She had an aneurysm. I hadn't seen her in 13. We were like very, very close. But because of COVID, she lived in Florida. I live in Connecticut. We hadn't seen each other in 13 months because last time we saw her was Christmas of 2019. We put her on a plane on January 1st, 2020, and then she died on January 30th of 2021. Mm. And so that was a shock to me. And I think that one was harder because we didn't have the opportunity to properly celebrate her life.
Yeah.
It was during the pandemic. She was in Florida. I have one sibling. He lived around the corner from her with his family, but I had to figure out how to get down there. It still was like, wasn't vaccine. It wasn't, so right. I flew to Florida by myself without my husband and my kids. And I was like, I'm just going to go do this. And I had an open-ended ticket. And, we had a memorial service for her, like a funeral for her, but we couldn't do it in the church because the church would not allow anybody indoors. You know what I mean? The funeral home allowed us to do it there because they were friends of ours, like family friends of ours. But we had to be socially, like, it was just, for somebody who gave so much in her life, we couldn't give her what she deserved. And that really bothered me a lot. And I think that had to and that bothered me. And so it was like, I don't know how to do that. And so when I actually came home, my brother was like, do you want her car? Like, we don't need her car. And I was like, I don't think I want it. And then I realized, oh, I have a 15-year-old at home and I don't have a car for her. Yes. And then I was like, because then I had like these piles of things that I wanted to take back with me from her home that we literally sold in 10 days while I was down there. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to drive her car back. And my best friend who lives in Florida near my mom my whole life, was like, I am driving back with you. And we Thelma and Louised it from Florida to Connecticut. We went to Washington, D.C. We stayed over at the W Hotel. We went to the spa. Like, I needed those 2 days with her to kind of figure out how I needed to grieve going forward and come back to my family.
Yep.
But it was hard for them too, because they couldn't go say goodbye to their grandmother. And
Yeah.
my husband was close to my mom. That was hard. So I think that was probably the hardest of and then my brother obviously is 2 years younger than me. He was 47. He had a heart attack, left behind 2 kids who are adults, and a wife. And, that was also like, oh my God, like what is actually happening? So, they were each very significant in their own way. I am still processing a lot of it, I'm sure. But I don't have a hard time talking about it. In fact, I tell my clients one of the best things I got out of the grief education stuff that I did was resources on how to have people feel comfortable with their loss. And the teacher tell the living story. And I really love that. Like, talk about your people when they were alive. People like, oh my God, what happened is typically the response when somebody passes, and now you're telling the death story over and over.
Yeah.
I would like people to say, can you just tell me about your daughter? Tell me about what you loved the most about her. Tell me what you loved about your mom. Tell me. And I encourage people to talk that way, because that makes me feel like, oh, you knew my mom, you knew how this, and you know how crazy she was this, and you knew, that I think helps make it a little bit easier to bear, even though it might be a harder story to hear because they're not here anymore. Right. But I think sharing those living stories helps keep their legacy alive.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I think a lot of people, I won't say a lot, but I think some people that have trouble with the sharing and with the talking about their person, it can actually prolong their grief, because that's one of the things that I talk about as well, is like, just tell that story over and over and over.
Yeah.
And then eventually, like, I think I say in there, one of the quotes is like, it's a story, it's a story, it's story. And then boom, it's like, holy shit, my person died. Like
it hits you again.
After a while.
Yeah.
And you really have to face those feelings. So yeah, I totally get that. Sorry, we have another comment. So Emma says, I just saw this. Focus on one step at a time, not the whole staircase. Yes, Emma.
Yes.
I love that one.
Baby steps.
I'm gonna steal that quote.
Lower your expectations.
Grief 101. That's absolutely true. Yeah, it is. Telling that story is so important.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think that's why it helps to talk about it so much. And like, I have people in my family, and I'm sure you know people as well, that hesitate to talk about it, or they feel like people don't want to hear about it. And they don't realize how important it is to get that story out there and let those emotions flow.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think it's one of the best things you can do when you're grieving. And it's not about, well, I think you made a comment earlier. It's not about forgetting your person or like getting over it. It is carrying that person with you into your future and figuring out a way that you can honor them and keep them with you as you go. And eventually, the more you do that, it becomes easier, with practice. So,
and right. It's like, you can't erase the life that you had prior to.
Yeah.
Right. It's like, for as many relationships that we want to forget, or as many whatever's experiences that we want to forget that weren't the best experiences in our lives, that's part of you. Right. And funnily enough, we don't discount those. Right. It's like, I don't want to forget, but those are the ones you kind of want to forget, right? You don't want to forget the people that were so special to you and so important to you that you want to always remember them. So again, I mean, we said this, but it just becomes part of you, and that is a very important part of you. And give that levity to it, right? Like, I want to talk about my people because they were important to me, and that is part of me, and that's part of my legacy, right? I mean, like, my 2 kids are, when my dad died, they were much younger, right? my oldest was 11 at the time, and my little one was, I think, 5. So talking about him keeps they don't really, I mean, they remember him, but they don't remember him, right? They remember their grandmother more and their uncle more. But even then, they were 16 and, 10. So they were young when all of these things happened. And so I think it's important to have pictures around the house and talk about them. And, I have the urn of both of my parents on my mantle, on my fireplace, because my mom put my dad in like this big vase that my grandmother used to have that had a cover on it. And she said, when I die, I'm going to go right on top of them.
Throw one in there.
Put the bag right on top of it and then close it up. And I was like, really? That's what you want? She was like, yeah. So that's what happened. And then my brother and I said to him, do you want this? And he was like, I don't want that. And I was like, okay. So I put them in the car and drove them up north.
Strapped
and then I put them on the fireplace, hearth on the, because I was like, well, they want to be warm because they're coming from the warm climate when I have the fireplace on. But like, okay, but so they're here, and I will talk to them out loud on the daily. Like, what do you people have for me today? Just tell me what is happening, right?
Yep.
But I think that that's important, and I think that you have to have a relationship with the person that is no longer here, even after they've gone.
Yes.
So don't think it's crazy to talk out loud to your angels. Don't think that you are the only person that does it because you're looking at somebody who just admitted to doing it.
I do too.
But I think it's important. I ask for signs all the time. I have a good friend who talks to dead people, and like she is spot on when she does it, and doesn't remember anything when she's finished telling you. It's the craziest thing I've ever seen in my life, but she never gets it wrong. And it's not like you can go to her and say, I need to talk to you about this. Does anybody have a message for me? Like I met her because we were at an event, and I know we're getting off topic, but like we were at an event and she had to seek me out at the event. And she's like, you're going to think I'm crazy, but the person in my head told me I can't leave until I talk to you. We had been in the same room for 8 hours, and that's all she heard in her head that whole day. I was like, I'm so sorry that. And it was a year after my dad died. It was my dad. And he came through in a way, like his communication to me was so right that I looked at her and I was like, how do you know this? And she was like, I don't know how I know this. And now, if you ask me what I just said to you, I won't remember it. It's the craziest thing I've ever experienced in my life. And so there are people out there who are gifted like that. I believe it. And I also believe that if you believe these things, you believe that your people are still around you or available to you, then you can still have some kind of semblance of a quote unquote relationship with them. Right. And I think that brings peace to people.
I think I'm almost the opposite. I'm going to disagree with you.
Really?
On that.
Really?
I found the spot where we disagree. Yeah,
That's fine.
That's okay. I'm not and I'm very open about this as well. I'm not religious. I'm not very spiritual. And my audience knows that. And I have no problem with it. I just have never been that way myself. And for me, the idea of not as much as with my parents or my siblings, but with my daughter in particular, the thought of her being like out there and being able to communicate freaks me out. Like I do. It is not useful for me. It is not comforting because my daughter, I called her my barnacle. That was my nickname because she was always attached to me. Loved her hugs, loved her snuggles. And I just, the thought of her being like out there somewhere, able to like see me, but not like communicate or like hold me or touch me or whatever, like that is it's horrifying to me. So,
I get it. I get it. Like there's no, I mean, everybody is different. I have to tell you that
personal
until it actually happened to me, I didn't know. You know what I mean? Like I've never seeked it out. Right. I've never been like, let's go to the psychic and see, like, that's not my style. Yeah. But when she walked up to me and said, I have something to tell you, and you might not believe it, and you're going to think it's crazy because it's totally crazy, but this person is not. And then she started talking. I was like, oh my God. Oh yeah. What are you talking about? Oh, and that must be very weird. I have never gone back for, like, I've never said to her, has anybody else? And she, like, it's not, it was very like a one-off kind of thing. But I think that for some people, I mean, there are a lot of people who seek it. trust me, like, you know that, right? There
Oh,
are
yeah.
all the medium shows out there and all this stuff, and
I'm in the
they want
minority,
to
I
hear
think.
from their people. Yeah. That's not me. But I think that after I heard those things, I was like, okay. I did feel better, but I wasn't like, let's go find this.
Yeah.
It had, and I think that it had to come, everything. I'm not sure that everything happens for a reason. I don't know if I believe that either. But I do think that there are things that happen in your life that take you to where you need to be, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think manifestation is a thing, and I think that you make your choices the way you make your choices. And that obviously had to happen to me for some reason.
Yeah. Yeah, I think like I said, every person's different. Whatever works for you in your grief, have at it. All right, Grief 101 says you are in a new chapter of your life, same person, next chapter. That is such a great way to look at it. Yeah, since we're both writers too.
Yeah.
Exactly. Like that chapter with your person living has closed. So it's going to a new chapter of living with that person still in your life, but in a different way. Yeah. That's a great way to look at it. All right. We are coming up on our time, Krista, but I wanted to give you a chance. Are there any, I know you have two different books, right? One is non-grief related. And
one is a relationship book. I wrote that years ago. The grief related book it's all on the website. So I don't know if I can comment in the chat or not, but it's you can't tell me how to feel.com.
I'll put it in the description too as well. Is it which one should I put in there? The Krista Rizzo or the
you can't tell me how to feel. Yeah. Okay. That's probably the better one.
Okay. I'll put that in there. So and I'll put that into the description as well. But yeah, so you can't tell me how to feel. And I think I read your son said that to you in the grocery store. That's how that came about.
Yes. So that was my oldest, who's now in college, who just came home from his first year of college, and he's been home 2 days, and it's like, okay, we got to figure this out. We have to all re-navigate how we're going to make this happen for the next 3 months. But he's home from school, which is lovely. It's great to have him home. When he was about 5, he was a toddler. He was still in daycare. I was still working in corporate. I had picked him up on a Friday evening, right? So it's probably 5:30, 6 o'clock-ish. And, weeks are long when you're little, and weeks are long when you're big, and you're tired, and it's Friday, and all you want to do is get home. And I picked him up, and we lived in Brooklyn at the time in New York, and we had to run to the bodega across the street to get some fresh vegetables for dinner. And then we would walk home, which was probably a 7 or 8 minute walk. And I said to him, okay, we're going to leave here. We have to go across the street to Rachel's, and we have to just pick up a couple things for dinner. And he was adamant about not going. I don't want to go. I want to go home. I'm tired. I'm this. And he was never a tantrum haver, like really was not. So I was like, let's just go. And being like, you're a mother, you're frustrated, you're tired, you are also feeling all these things. And you're like, but I still have to do things.
Yeah.
I can't just go home and lay on the couch and watch, the Backyardigans, whatever he was watching at the time. Right. So I'm not dragging him, but like taking him across the street. He's having a meltdown. We get into this store, which is literally a corner bodega, and it's like tiny. And so there's like the aisles are this big. You can fit one person. You have to lean to let people pass you. And he is on the floor. And now people are watching. And now you're angsty and you have anxiety and you're stressed out and you're like, and you know how this is going to end. Everything's going to be fine. Yeah. And I kept saying to him, everything's going to be fine. Get up, stop crying. This is ridiculous. Like all the things that we react to as parents to our children when they're having these kinds of episodes. And he looked at me and he was like, you can't tell me how to feel. And I immediately stopped talking and said, you know what? You're right. So I got down to his level and I said, you're right. I cannot tell you how to feel, but here's what I can do. I can tell you how, if we do these 3 things, we're both going to feel much better. So let's figure out how to make this better. And so that kind of has always stuck with me through my coaching. I have no agency to tell anybody else how to feel. It's my job to help validate your feelings and acknowledge your feelings and tell you that it's okay to have those feelings. I'm never going to tell, well, not never, because I'm sure I've slipped up before because, We all do. Stop crying. It's going to be fine.
Yes.
Right. But I try very hard to pay attention to those kinds of things and say, you know what? You're right. It really does suck what you're going through right now. How can I help you?
Yeah.
How can I help make it easier for you? What can I do to try to alleviate this pain? Maybe we can work through this together. Right. And I think that when you recognize that about yourself and about other people's feelings, because we are very quick to invalidate other people's feelings, right? It's like, you shouldn't feel like that. It's going to be fine. Who are you to tell me that I can't have that feeling? Nobody. I'm absolutely nobody. You need to have your feelings. Feelings are important. And I think we need to teach that to our boys and our girls and our people and our parents. And we need to break these cycles of having these masks and these walls up all the
faces.
time. Yeah. Like, show us who you really are. We like you better.
So true. Oh,
Yeah,
well, Krista, thank you so much for joining us today. That was an awesome discussion. You are welcome back anytime. I appreciate it. And yes, everybody, you can find Krista at youcan'ttellmehowtofeel.com. Is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Awesome.
Thank you, everybody.
And thank you. And once again, sending out our love on Mother's Day. Take care of yourselves today if you are a grieving mom like me.
Yes.
And I will see you guys in 2 weeks. Thank you. And sending love and hugs as always.
Bye.
Bye.